Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the pleasure of inviting Ms. Leslie Richer, the Director of Information and Communication at the African Union Commission, who is our keynote speaker for today, to make her statement and to officially open this conference. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Honorable Garisha Topsy-Sono, AU Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression and Access to Information from the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, Mr. David Gudish, Deputy Permanent Observer of the Federal Republic of Germany to the African Union, Dr. Yemisi Akinbobola, Co-founder and CEO, African Women in Media, Ms. Meseret Kebede, Director of the Ethiopian Media Association, Mr. Jonathan Tesfaye, Deputy Director of the Ethiopian Media Authority, distinguished delegates, representatives from the diplomatic corps, development partners, AWiM partners and sponsors, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the annual African Women in Media Conference, a gathering that celebrates the voices, visions, and leadership of women shaping Africa's narrative across all media platforms. Furthermore, AWiM has established itself as a platform that addresses key issues that not only affect the media industry, but which address fundamental issues of women's rights as covered in various conventions and policies, all of which are anchored and enshrined in the African Charter on the Rights of Women in Africa. Today, we gather at a pivotal moment where our interconnected world offers unprecedented opportunities and yet troubling challenges that threaten the fabric of our societies. The overarching theme that brings us here today is a pandemic, gender-based violence. A pandemic, it seems, that no real action is being taken to address. We are here to confront a crisis that thrives in the shadows of progress, a plague that spreads across the very technologies we celebrate as instruments of connection and empowerment. Gender-based violence has found fertile ground in our digital age and is metastasizing at a pace that should alarm all of us. Violence against women and girls in its many forms has transcended physical spaces and found new insidious venues online. As much as digital tools have amplified reach and impact, they have also exposed users to new forms of violence online. Digital platforms, which should be spaces of growth, connection, and empowerment, have instead too often become arenas of harassment, threats, abuse, and intimidation aiming to silence voices, undermine confidence, restrict freedom of expression, and this is a reality that is unacceptable. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not here to debate whether gender-based violence happens online. We are here to call to account those who are failing women and girls and what must be done. Let me first start by addressing our governments, because you hold the power of law, the machinery of justice, and the duty to protect. Governments bear the fundamental responsibility to protect their citizens, whether in the physical world or the digital realm. The right to live free from violence does not evaporate the moment we log on. Yet too many governments treat online gender-based violence as somehow less real, less urgent, less worthy of action than the violence that leaves physical scars. Digital protection is as essential as any other human right, and governments bear a critical and profound responsibility to act decisively. Our continent must lead with clear and enforceable laws criminalizing online gender-based violence and harassment. However, legislation without enforcement is merely performance. These laws must be backed by prosecutorial action and policies that provide safety, support, and justice for victims, ensuring offenders face real-life consequences. It is imperative to craft and enforce robust legislation explicitly criminalizing gender-based violence in all digital forms. Laws must not only punish perpetrators, but also protect victims by mandating transparency, accountability, and swift judicial processes. Without clear legal frameworks and rigorous enforcement, the digital world risks becoming a lawless realm where abuse flourishes unchecked. We need criminal justice systems trained to investigate these crimes with the seriousness they deserve. And we need international cross-border cooperation treaties because perpetrators exploit jurisdictional gaps with impunity, because violence knows no borders and neither should justice. Equally urgent is the call to technology companies that power the digital platforms we rely on, and these companies cannot stand apart from this struggle. The technology companies are the architects and gatekeepers of our digital world. Every day, women and girls face harassment, threats, image-based abuse, doxing, and coordinated campaigns of terror simply for existing online. Journalists are silenced, activists are driven from the public discourse, young women abandon their dreams because the digital public square has become a hunting ground. This is not a glitch in the system. This is the system working exactly as it was designed by those who never had to fear it. The truth remains that women remain starkly underrepresented in the ownership and leadership of tech firms. The familiar phrase, tech bros, is often used casually, almost affectionately, to describe the leaders of the industry. In fact, it is a label that defines the core of the problem with stark clarity and highlights a serious obstruction to progress. The label is revealing, it's descriptive, and it's diagnostic. When women constitute less than a quarter of leadership positions in major tech companies, and an even smaller fraction of founders and owners, we're not looking at meritocracy. We are looking at a monoculture. And monocultures, by definition, lack the perspective to see, let alone solve problems they do not experience. Those who control these algorithmic powerhouses lack what I call skin in the game. These predominantly male leaders who dominate not only the boardrooms, but the very architecture of digital spaces are unwilling to dedicate their vast resources and talent to innovating solutions and developing cutting-edge technology aimed squarely at ending gender-based violence online. As evidenced to date, deploying such technology might just violate certain unspoken codes of loyalty among those who have never had to fear the platforms they built. The greatest enablers of online gender-based violence are those who provide the enabling environment and profit off the back of the terrorizing of women and girls online. Freedom of expression should never be weaponized to excuse intimidation, threats, or abuse that drive women out of democratic participation. Rights come with responsibilities, and inaction is itself a form of complicity. Your artificial intelligence can generate art, write code, and predict behavior with unsettling accuracy, serving us targeted ads based on a glance at a page. You can recommend content with eerie precision. You can identify copyright violations in seconds, and yet somehow the technology needed to detect and prevent gender-based violence remains perpetually out of reach, forever in beta, always coming in the next update. Perhaps developing such technology would require a level of commitment that conflicts with engagement metrics. Perhaps it would mean investing billions, not in the next virtual reality headset, but in the decidedly unglamorous work of content moderation and user safety. Discomfort is not oppression. Accountability is not censorship, and safety is not a premium feature. The tech industry must acknowledge that solving this crisis goes beyond PR statements and occasional safety features. We cannot build a sustainable and equitable future on a digital foundation riddled with violence and exclusion. It requires fundamental shifts, increase women's representation at decision-making levels, design platforms with safety embedded by default, and invest proactive innovation to shield users rather than expose them to harm. Perhaps next to sustainability green goals and revenue target goals and eye-watering compensation packages, Boards that oversee tech companies should start asking for accountability and metrics for investing in reducing and ending gender-based violence. The bottom line should not draw a line in profiting off the back of terrorizing women and girls in digital spaces. I'd now like to acknowledge the men who have joined us today. Your presence here affirms that gender-based violence is not a women's problem. It is an every man's problem. The men who are here and those who are joining us online realize and have seen, in the physical world, you have watched societies crumble as women and girls are denied their rights and the men having to leave their entire lives behind so that the women and girls they care for can have a chance to live to their fullest potential. You recognize that when men who violate the rights of women and girls in their communities are done, they will be looking to violate the rights of the women and girls in your lives next, whether it is in the physical realm or online. And ending gender-based violence on digital platforms is not merely a policy challenge or a corporate responsibility. It is a societal imperative essential not only for women's rights, but for advancing democracy, peace, and development across Africa. Only through committed synergistic efforts from governments, civil society, and the tech sector can we transform digital spaces into environments of dignity, respect, and equality for all. To the African women in media here today, your safety and empowerment online matter deeply. Your voices must not be drowned out by threats or intimidation. Together with governments and the tech industry, we must insist on diverse leadership, proactive technological innovation, and accountable governance of digital spaces. Your courage and leadership inspire this urgent call to action. To governments, legislate, enforce, protect. To tech companies, your social license to operate depends on social responsibility. Diversify your leadership and invest in safety with the same vigor you invest in growth. To civil society, continue to document, to advocate, and to support survivors. You are often the only ones standing between victims and complete abandonment. And to all of us, we must recognize that digital violence is real violence. It destroys lives, silences voices, and undermines democracy itself. We cannot afford to be bystanders. The digital world is not separate from the real world. It is the real world. And in the real world, half of humanity deserves the right to live, work, create, and speak without fear. This is not an impossible dream. This is a basic human right, and it is long past time we treated it as such. When we protect the rights and safety of women in cyberspace, we uphold the very foundations of justice and human dignity worldwide. Let this conference mark a new chapter where women no longer just survive, but thrive safely in every corner of the digital world and the physical world. I thank you, and I declare this conference open.